Let's move on, though, into the next team, Sean, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bungles, or if you're Brandon Swanson, the Cincinnati Bengals. And I mentioned to you before we started recording this, I looked at this roster and went, did they make any moves? Mm-hmm. Like, all I see is Preston Brown, Cordy Glenn, both from Buffalo. I see first-round pick Billy Price, which I was a little confused on that one come draft night. I look at this team and I go, is this just, like, are we looking at, and I don't mean this as disrespect to Bengals fans, but they're going to take it this way, are we looking at number 3 in the AFC North again? And only because the Browns are only going to win 3 games.
I mean, what gives you the idea that this team is that much better than the Browns?
I don't. Well, and to me, I just feel like the Browns are going to lose more games than not.
What do the Bengals have when it comes to edge to give them that competitive edge that pushes them over? Marvin Lewis doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. Marvin Lewis is going to keep his job no matter what. Whether he goes 6-9, 7-9, 6-9-1, whether he goes 4-12, whether he goes 4-11, he's going to keep his job.
I would say
if he consistently loses in the wild card game, he's going to keep his job. He has never gotten past the wild card game, so he hasn't done anything in Cincinnati besides get 12 wins every now and then. Mm-hmm. I mean, they don't have that much to play for. Andy Dalton already has his contract. AJ Green is locked up right now, and we know that he's a great wide receiver no matter what team he's on. Tyler Eifert's playing to be healthy. What do the Bengals have to play for? Like, this is a team that I don't know where the competitive edge is. The Browns need to win a game. Like, that's their competitive edge. We look at, the Baltimore Ravens, you look at Joe Flacco, they have the competitive edge of Joe Flacco wanting to keep his job. Mm-hmm. We look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, this might be the last year that they can beat the Patriots. This might be their last chance to take down the Patriots. What is the Bengals' edge? Because no one's getting fired, no one's getting moved, because it seems that this, at least franchise, is just complacent. I don't understand where the Bengals are, and it's shown in the moves that you said. They didn't bring much into this team. They made smart moves. I think the Cordy Glenn trade was a nice move. They picked up an extra pick in that Bills trade, and I think that was a very smart move for the Bengals, or at least they moved down, got Cordy Glenn, and got a pick as well. I think that was a smart move. But they didn't add on to this team. They didn't go out and make any splashes. They didn't help this team get significantly better. Mm-hmm. And this team last year, it wasn't like they were dealing with that many major injuries. I just don't think they were that talented.
I'm looking at the schedule because, like, for this team, you're right. You look at the roster and it's like, oh, you got AJ Green still. Oh, you got Brandon LaFell still. Oh, you got Andy Dalton still.
And people might say, like, oh, you're getting John Ross because, like, technically he didn't play that much last year. He didn't really get a shot to
quickest
out
guy
there
from the draft 2 years ago.
Yeah, he didn't really get to step out there and make a name for himself because he didn't play in any games last year or catch any balls last year. He wasn't able to do that. So technically you're getting a new player in John Ross, but I think there was even reports that Marvin Lewis wasn't a fan of John Ross. I might be wrong on that, but I think there was even reports like last year that he was not a fan of John Ross. So then you're already getting a guy and a rookie who has no confidence. I just don't know where their edge is coming from. Maybe it's just from Vontaze Burfict just being an asshole. Like, just consistently just being a scumbag, and they have to protect him. I just don't know where the edge is coming from the Bengals. And I think Bengal fans are going to be like, oh, this guy's just a Bengal hater. But I'm just trying to find logically where their edge this year is going to come from.
I wouldn't say it's being a Bengal hater, because I even looked at the schedule. I brought up my early predictions of wins and losses. Right now, I only have them at 4 wins. The most I can see them going at this moment is 6. And for me, just looking at their schedule, these are games that could be automatic losses to me when we get to the season. At Carolina, at Atlanta, home against Pittsburgh, at Kansas City, home against Tampa Bay, that one's a toss-up, at home against the Saints, at the Ravens, the Broncos at home, the Chargers on the road, the Raiders at home, and then I got the Browns sneaking one, the one in Cleveland, and then you're not beating Pittsburgh this year. So, like, for me, the only teams I've got you beating are the Colts week 1 because I don't know what to expect from Andrew Luck, the Ravens because you're playing them at home week 2, the Browns at home, and then the Dolphins. Like, those are the only, like, I wonder if the schedule with the teams that they have, if the competitive level is just going to be more than they are at, and they're a 5-4 win team.
I think it's probably a 5 or 4 win team because even looking at last year, like their defense, which is typically probably their best part of their team, or at least they're typically a well balanced team. Their defense was middle of the pack to even lower than that because you look at yards allowed per game, I think they're at 18. You look at points allowed per game, they're at 16, which is right dead middle. And then you look at their giveaway takeaway differential, and they were near the bottom of the league with a -9 differential. So and we look at Andy Dalton, we don't think Andy Dalton's a top 10 quarterback and even close to one. He had a couple good years, but I don't think he's going to come back to that level of play. We look at AJ Green. AJ Green has some nagging injuries that consistently are around, but really, what are the other targets on that team that are going to take away from AJ Green? Because Brandon LaFell's fine, but like he's not a next level player. We look at John Ross. We don't know if he's going to get that much playing time, and we look at Tyler Eifert, a guy that I really love, I root for, but he's consistently injured.
He's a Golden Domer, right?
Yeah, he's a Golden Domer. Yeah. So he's consistently getting injured. And we look at this running back position. Joe Mixon was a guy that people were really high on, but he didn't have that great of a rookie year. I mean, he was just a rookie, so we'll see what he does in his second year. But I don't know where the playmakers are outside, at least offensively, outside of A.J. Green. And I think that's a problem because teams can focus in on A.J. Green.
Well, and let me just put it this way. Here were the teams that they beat last year. Cleveland, which you should beat Cleveland. There was no problem about that. You beat Buffalo at home. That was only a 4-point win. You might be able to say, well, they were a playoff team. Fine. It's an okay team to beat. Then the Colts, you only beat them by 1. They didn't have Andrew Luck last year. Then you've got at Denver. You only won by 3, and that was a team that didn't have a quarterback last year. They got a quarterback this year. I mean, Case Keenum might not be the level he was last year for a team, but even if he's decent, he'll be better than anything the Broncos trotted out there a year ago. Then you beat Cleveland again, but Cleveland scored more points on you this time, and you had one less. And then you had later in the year a Detroit team that really had nothing to play for because they weren't going to make the playoffs. And then to me, the only quality win you had all year was the last game of the year in Baltimore because you went into Baltimore and you played playoff spoiler to the team that was right above you in the division.
And I will give the Bengals credit. That was one fucking hell of a game. That was a really fun game to watch because that was an absolute blast. But I agree with you. I mean, the Lions, I think it was a good win. And I know you kind of discredit it, but I think the Lions was a good win. The Ravens one was a good win. I think the Bills one was a good win as well in Week 5. But obviously they were dealing with troubles as well. But I mean, and you look at the losses too. I mean, the Jaguars, they got blown up by the Jaguars, 23-7. You look at most of the Steelers games. Steelers beat them 29-14, and they beat them 23-20, which was a close game. But you even look at that Bears game the next week, 33-7. I mean, the Bears sucked.
The Bears beat the Bengals by almost the same margin that the Vikings beat the Bengals by.
Yeah, next week, but you get trounced by the Vikings, 34-7.
The Bears did it on the road where the Vikings did it at home.
Yeah, so I don't know where this team is going to come from because I think their best, the outside of A.J. Green, the best thing about this team is going to be this pass rush because Geno Atkins is a monster in the middle. Carlos Dunlap is a really good pass rusher, and I think we also got you can't sleep on the kid from Auburn, Carl Lawson. Had a real nice season last year, 8.5 sacks. He's a guy that is going to be an interesting player to watch, see how good if he is. Maybe that was a fluke last year, 8.5 sacks, or maybe he'll be able to take that next step up. And having Geno Atkins on that front line, having Michael Johnson, having Carlos Dunlap, those are guys that can make difference, especially with Carl Lawson. So that's going to be one positive for Cincinnati is the fact that their pass rush is going to be really good. And then looking back, you have Preston Brown, a guy in Buffalo who had some success. Vontae Burfict, even though I'm not a fan of him, he is still a very talented football player. And you look at that secondary. Ialoka has been a very good to great safety throughout his career. Drake Kirkpatrick has been a good corner at times in his career. He's had his ups, he's had his downs. So, I mean, this defense should be fine. But even then last year, they weren't consistent enough. And that's the biggest thing with the Bengals is I don't think they're going to get that consistency because I don't think they have that edge. I don't think they have a game-changing leader. I don't kind of like the Browns. I don't think they have a game-changing leader. I don't think they have that much talent. I think you could probably even make the case that the Browns are more talented. I mean, look at the quarterback position. The Browns do have two good quarterbacks or two serviceable quarterbacks in Tyrod Taylor and in Baker Mayfield, where Andy Dalton's a serviceable quarterback. You look at the wide receiving core, you have Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, good old, who's the kid from Corey Coleman. Yeah. Corey Coleman as well, where you look at Cincinnati, it's just A.J. Green. And you look at, tight end position, you have Tyler Eifert, but he's never consistently healthy. So the positive on Cincinnati's offense is just I think that this line's going to be good. I think Bowling's going to be good. Corey Glenn is a nice addition. Billy Price, I think, was a steal. I think he's going to be a guy that contributes right away. And Jake Fisher, a guy that was drafted high before. It was Eric Fisher, but Jake Fisher still a good lineman as well. So I think that their line's going to be decent enough, but will they be able to open up holes for Joe Mixon? There's a lot of question marks, I think, just with this Bengals team. Maybe they get to 7 wins again. Maybe they get to maybe even 9 wins and possibly sneak in as a wild card. But I don't think they have that edge. I don't think they have that next level playmaker that's consistent enough, because AJ Green has been fantastic. AJ Green's a top 5 wide receiver in the league, but even 2016, he dealt with injuries and barely eclipsed or just missed 1,000 yards. And last year, he played all 16 games, but he just got over 1,000 yards and only had 8 touchdowns. So AJ Green hasn't been able to be consistent enough, and maybe it's just because he's in this Bengals offense where there's not enough playmakers to take away from him. I don't think he's ever going to get back to that 2013 season where he had 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they also had Mohamed Sanu next to him as well that year.
They used to be able to at least take away from AJ Green and be able to give teams a lot to look at. Where I don't think they have next level playmakers outside of AJ Green. So I think this Bengals team, there's a lot of question marks, and it's really, when are you going to be able to get your wins? Is it going to be early on in the season? Because that Indianapolis game should be a winnable game for you, because Andrew Luck might not be 100%, and I know it's in Indy, but if he's not playing, you're going to be going up against Jacoby Brissett, who you lost to last year, or you'll be going up against a hurt Andrew Luck. But even then, Andrew Luck might be having that next level edge because he wants to prove that he's still a great quarterback in this league. Then you look at the Ravens. We know divisional games are going to be tough no matter what. You can't really give an edge to any team.
They're going to play up for the division.
Well, yeah, you're not going to give an edge to either team. Yeah. I mean, this could be a team that goes 3-3 in the division, 4-2 in the division, 2-4 in the division. It's really, you're probably going to favor the home team no matter what the team is. But I mean, outside of that, you do have a tough schedule because you're playing at the Panthers, at the Falcons. Then you host the Saints, but the Saints are one hell of a team. Yeah. You look at the Broncos. That's at home. That's going to probably be a winnable game there too. But you're going to Arrowhead. You're playing the Bucs with Jameis back. So there's a couple toss-ups in this season, but I don't know if there's any for sure wins outside of one Browns game.
Well, and for me, you talked about inconsistencies, and the thing it comes back to is coaching. It's weird that for the Browns and now for the Bengals, it's all coming back to coaching. And one thing I will say is that 2013 season that you mentioned, the next best receiver yards-wise was Marvin Jones, who had 712.
He was a really good
player.
Then
Giovanni Bernard, then Jermaine Gresham, then Mohamed Sanu, then Tyler Eifert, and also on that team played 10 games, Dave's boy from Ohio State.
Oh, Dane
Sanzenbacher.
And one thing, too, about Cincinnati, I mentioned that there's probably more toss-ups on the schedule. They boast the 3rd easiest schedule in football.
Really?
Yeah. According to NFL.com.
That's weird.
But I look at it and I don't know where the wins come from because I don't think this team has that next level talent.
Well, I mean, the only thing for me,
maybe it's because they play the Browns and Ravens 4 times, but
I mean, and the Chiefs, we don't know what we're going to see from them this year, but
Bucks,
in Arrowhead, Bucks, I don't know what we're going to see with Jameis Winston, but he'll be back for that game.
Yeah.
The one that's and I know this isn't the Bronco
the Dolphins
preview.
Too, as well.
The thing I want to mention about them, because they do play the Bengals again, they're a team that got their quarterback in free agency and then added a pass rusher to that defense that many thought the Browns should have taken in Bradley Chubb. So, I expect that team, how many wins do I have them with? Yeah, I have them 12-4 right now, which might be a little high.
Way too high.
But when you have a good quarterback and you've got a good defense, you can go to the playoffs.
Where do you have the Chargers going?
The Chargers right now, 9-7.
They should be 12-4.
12-4. Well,
Broncos. I mean, you have a good quarterback already in Phillip Rivers,
and that's where the schedules come in. And I mean, the Bengals. The thing I wanted to ask is, you mentioned consistencies, and I ask this every year. I'm kind of getting tired of asking it because...
Please don't ask me if Marvin Lewis should have been fired.
No. I'm not saying he should be fired because he should have been fired long ago. But the question I was going to ask you is, if you're a Bengals fan, put yourself in a Bengals fan's shoe.
No, don't worry. They don't watch anymore.
Are you basically looking at this going, this is our own fault? this is what we get. Well, not fans, but this is what the team gets for not moving on from him either of the seasons. Like 2016, all right, you came off of a playoff, like consecutive playoff appearances. I get it. But then it's like last year, all right, 7-9 again, like, and they're losing in the wild card game, so they're not getting past that wild card game. Are you looking at it going, we should be in this situation because this is what management has put us in? There are no repercussions. There are no, I don't want to say standards, but there's no level of like, we need to get here. If you're not at here, then things are going to change because things haven't changed for over 20 years.
It falls on
almost 20 years.
It falls on the Brown family. It falls on the owners of the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's Mike Brown. It's a guy who is not only the owner, he's the GM. He runs the whole football team, and he's just stuck in the old days. The guy's 82 years old. He needs to move on and give it up to young blood, and that's not only in his general managing position, but it's also in his coaching staff. He needs to be able to cycle this out and bring Cincinnati new life. I mean, the biggest thing for fans is if you want to see a change, I think you got to stop supporting your Bengals, and it's so tough to ask of any fan to stop rooting for your hometown team, for rooting for the team that you've grown up rooting for. But if you want to see change, that's probably the biggest thing that happens. And I think we've seen that happen because the games that I've watched, when they're at Cincinnati, I know the one that I was watching last year, it was the Bears game. That game was absolutely dead. And you look at Cincinnati, they are second worst in attendance last year. 31, right behind Los Angeles. And Los Angeles was a great team, but they were playing in the Coliseum. They weren't having consistent showings, but you assume that the Rams are on their way up. It feels like Cincinnati's probably going to be, again, in the bottom two of the league. I think probably Oakland falls below them just because the team's going to be moving out of Las Vegas. I think Oakland's going to at least try to spurn this team. But you look at Cincinnati, I think they're going to, again, be the bottom of the league when it comes to putting on. This was the Chargers. By the Chargers were bottom. There's two Los Angeles teams now, but they were playing in a fucking soccer stadium. Yeah. So it's like you can't really count them. So I just look at the Bengals, and I think the biggest thing that falls on them is just ownership, and ownership just keeps screwing them over time and time again. Let me ask you this. Last question I'll ask you about the Bengals is one of the new additions they did make in their coaching staff this year was they added Terrell Austin from Detroit. But that was only because Matt Patricia coming into Detroit wasn't going to or did not retain Terrell Austin as his defensive coordinator because Matt Patricia is going to do the Bill Belichick thing of I'm the head coach, but I'm also running the defense as well. Does that bode well for Bengal fans? Like, because you said, their defense, their pass rush is good, and now you're bringing in a Terrell Austin who didn't do bad things in Detroit. No, but I mean, Detroit wasn't one of the best defenses in the NFL. I mean, he puts out a decent defense consistently. In the first season, for second overall and third in points allowed in 2014. But then it was kind of just falling off from there. I mean, they lost Sue, they lost Fairley, and I think last year 18th overall in 2016, and then 13th in scoring. I mean, it's going to be something where I think they're going to be consistently middle of the pack like they were last year. I don't think it's going to be an improvement to this defense. I think they're going to be right around where they were last year. I don't think Terrell Austin's going to change the culture. I don't think he's going to boost them up to a top elite defense. I think it's going to be a change that's going to keep them exactly where they are. I just find it funny that the Detroit Lions did exactly what the Bengals probably should have done, which they could do at the end of this year, where you've got Marvin Lewis 6-9-1, 7-9, and then this year will be his third year. Whereas ever since the 11-5 season that Caldwell had his first year with Detroit, 7-9, then a 9-7 where they made the playoffs but lost to the Seahawks in the first game, then another 9-7 last year, and they said, screw it, you're done, get out of here, and they moved on. The Bengals, I feel like a broken record, that's why I didn't ask it, but I'll say it anyways. Marvin Lewis should probably be fired at the end of this year, but we know it's not going to happen. We know, unless they go 3-13. Which they haven't gone, let me see. 4-12 in 2010. That's the last time they've had a losing record. I mean, the 6-9-11 is technically... That's the last time they've had under 5 wins. Yeah, exactly. It was that, and then 2008
are the only years that he's had. But Bengal fans, let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.
Not watching anymore. We pissed
Let
them
us
off
know
too much.
what you think of your Bengals this year. How many games they're going to win? Will Marvin Lewis get fired? What do you think? Let us know down below in the comment section.